Regardless to the period of time you live in, society will always have a strong set of guidelines that individuals feel they need to conform to in order to be accepted. However, not all individuals are able to conform and fit into the guidelines set out for them. This is demonstrated in Andrew Niccol's film Gattaca, set in a futuristic society which only values those who are genetically superior belong. However, Niccol's main protagonist has the plight of someone who is unable to conform. Similarly, in The Crucible by Arthur Miller, we see a town paralyzed called Salem, which brings out the worst of the people as they all try and conform and avoid the walls of the church, except for John Proctor. Both protagonists experience the same struggles against society and are both considered failures in their communities. Both Nichols and Miller prove that a person's inability to conform and belong can cause instability in the environment in which they live, but by challenging the narrow viewpoint of their prospective societies, each of the main characters achieve a sense of personal fulfillment. Both in The Crucible and Gattaca, we see both societies set out narrow and rigid expectations for all its inhabitants to uphold. In Gattaca, we see a society where people are segregated according to their genetic makeup, because they believe that it is not worth investing in someone who is genetically flawed, invalid. Whereas in The Crucible, we see a town that is so fixated on abiding by the Puritan laws and societal codes set out by the church. Yet in both societies, we see the people scared of the wrath of the town's figures of authority and the consequences they have for not conforming and attempting to disturb the social order that is being created. The main protagonist in the film Gattaca, Vincent, is a godbirth with a serious heart defect. The others may believe he does not belong and should not be fraternizing with people of superior genetic makeup. Refusing to accept his fate, Vincent does all in his power to achieve his dream because he is not content with the idea of conforming and belonging in society that sees him as a millennial cleaner simply based on being genetically flawed. This shows that Gattaca is a highly discriminatory and only place that values valids. Similarly, in The Crucible, Abigail's insecurities and fears of being caught for her actions in the woods force her to create an elaborate story to avoid the shame and alienation of the church, which ends up causing the start of a futile hunt and the death of several innocent people. Again, we see the pressure of society's expectations taking its toll on the lives of people who they are enforced upon, and the lengths the people must go to in order to avoid the consequences and ridicule of nonconformity. In both texts, we see the main protagonist struggle to conform with the codes of their society. Initially, we see Morrow from Gattaca struggle with not winning the swimming race, yet we begin to see that his issues are more complicated. With a genetic quotient second to none, he is expected to be the best at everything. Yet once he loses, it seems his existence is pointless until he becomes the borrowed ladder for Vincent. This shows that even by fully meeting society's expectations, Morris is not personally happy. When he becomes a paraplegic, he allows Vincent, a man who is so desperate to realize his dream, and gives him the opportunity to go to Saturn, which only exists in the world of valids. The sense of belonging is replicated in Miller's play by the protagonist John Proctor, who is accused of fraternizing with the devil and is ridiculed and confronted by the church to name someone as a scapegoat in order for him to be freed of his crimes and not face execution. Yet to Proctor, belonging was more about not ruining his name, but upholding his moral values and not setting another innocent person to be executed, rather than conforming to the Puritan laws of the church. This example shows how an individual cannot truly conform unless they feel as if they belong and fit in the guidelines set out for them. Otherwise, they'll do everything in their power to resist and fight back. However, we see the impact of an individual's choices has on the sense of belonging and identity, along with how they respond and interact with others and themselves. Nichol's final scenes show how Morrow no longer manages to belong in the society which he cannot conform perfectly into, and a society that has expected so much of him. And as a result, he decides to take his own life. However, in Miller's play, we see people who stay true to their morals, such as John Proctor and Rebecca Nurse, but are unable to confirm and end up being sentenced to death as a consequence. Again, we see that regardless of how well some characters conform in their society, the expectations upon them doesn't change how not everybody turns out to achieve personal fulfillment. Instead, the ability to live by their own moral code, even if it means challenging the expectations of the society, can bring immense personal fulfillment, and the characters readers and viewers admire with emulate in their own lives. Both the Crucible and the Gattaca show us the importance of being true to who we are, rather than blindly following society's narrow and rigid expectations. Sometimes it is necessary to rebel in order for this to be achieved, and we see strong growth in those characters who accept this challenge, regardless of how this may appear.